Hello! Welcome to the Fantasy Football Game Show presented by Front Yard Fantasy. It's in the game. No? Yeah. I am Josh. That's my name. I'm here today, as always, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time on weekdays, Monday through Friday, with my great friend, John Luke Garofalo. How you doing today, JL?
Doing fantastic. Josh, how are you?
I'm feeling good today. Good energy. Let's go.
Good, feeling
Ready
great.
to just tier some tight ends. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
But we are joined by a very special guest today, Andrew Cooper. You can find him on Twitter at CoopAFiasco. You can find it right there written on the screen. He's the lead NFL analyst at Fantasy Alarm. He is a Fantasy Sports Writers Association award nominee, co-host of 3 different podcasts, NFL Fantasy Alarm, the Fantasy Besties, Lightning Round Fantasy. How you doing today, Andrew?
Phenomenal, man. Anytime I can hang out with you guys, it's the best, man. And also,
You forgot Flashlight Connoisseur.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I just want to. You forgot a couple
if
things
Simon
there.
was here, he would have remembered.
Yeah, so forgot a couple things there. You know, shout out to the Grimace gang in the chat. Grimace, never forget how he was mistreated by Front Yard Fantasy.
Disrespect.
Shout out to Simon and Fountain Pens. I know he couldn't be here today, but I'm sure he's at home taking notes with probably one of the finest pens around.
Sharpening his
pens.
Yeah, and then shout out to the Flashlight subreddit, of course, obviously.
Of course.
Keep things bright over there, boys. Keep things bright.
How could you forget them?
I was trying to think of like a clever like sommelier, but for flashlights, like a Lumalier or something. And I was like, nah,
Luminalier.
Luminaire.
Never talking, guys. Never talking. I like where your head's at. Something horrible happened right now in the chat. Craig, someone at work scheduled a meeting during my special time with FYF. For that, I have tears. Get it? He said he has tears, like crying, but we're doing tiers today. We're ranking tight ends. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
Never change, Craig.
Never change. Be you, Craig.
Seriously.
Be you.
I don't know if he's serious or he just like used this. Like
he just needed some sort of pretense.
Yeah, I hope you're here, Craig. I hope you were just lying about being scheduled, but I could see.
Yeah, you better be.
Truly Epic said, for this ranking, let's consider Hunter Renfrow as a tight end, right? Why not? Then we can rank him accordingly. Hunter Renfrow, if he was a tight end, you could put him in your tight end spot. He would absolutely be in an elite
top
tier.
Of the list. Yep.
I'll tell you, the guy doesn't look like a wide receiver, so it doesn't matter what he looks like. Just he can do whatever. The guy's a superhero.
He looks like something. He looks like something.
Looks like Dustin Pedroia. It's the common man.
Yeah.
Andrew, Jay's right there with you. I like to know where Grimace lands.
F tier.
I don't know if you were looking for the pound, but I went for it. Justin, yo, what's up? Yo, what's up, Justin? Midnight, good afternoon,
what up, Justin?
fellas.
What up, Midnight?
Coop, your teeth look phenomenal today.
I told Jay I rescheduled the dentist appointment to earlier in the day to make this in time.
Fresh clean.
Your teeth do look fantastic.
In post, put in that sparkle sound.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, guys.
You could kind of use that thing that they use on Thursday Night Football where they like circle players and it's like all sparkly.
Yeah, what is that? The Sonic ring?
Yeah, the Sonic ring.
Yeah, thank you though, Jay. There's nothing better than just like being on a podcast and thinking about your teeth. So thank you.
Oh man, now I'm thinking about them. Okay, we got to get on. We got all time.
Thank you.
Scott Fish is on the I can talk, guys. FSWA board. Just saying in case you feel like greasing the wheels.
You know what they say? Squeaky mouse gets the grease.
That's right, Scott. Don't forget that. Remember that really cool Photoshop I did for you with the Matrix thing with the glasses. I mean, come on, that's got to get me somewhere, buddy. Right?
Oh,
somewhere,
kind of Matrix. Jay, Grimace Gang all day. Let's go. I'm here all week, y'all. Let's go, FYF Maria. That's why I like to hear Eric saying, "Yo,"
Eric.
And then Eric says, "Solely, verb." Oh, that's so good. Verb to soil or tarnish.
To soil or tarnish. I like that.
When you look it up in the dictionary, that's what it
word
says.
Of the day. Eric's word of the day. No. There goes our free Outback meal.
He was going to win.
There goes our blooming onion, Josh.
A lot of money, many thousands of dollars if you won that. Was it for $10,000 for first place, or was that the
first
total
place
prizes?
Was $10K. Yeah.
I mean, he won $2,500. So
it's still good, but great
bravo
job
for that, man.
Great
Good job all season. Good job. I'm glad you got a decent payout there.
It's all Zeke's fault.
Greg saying, do you accept Bags as bribery, Scott? So, hey, this is good news. Craig is in the chat. Maybe he didn't have a work thing, actually. Great news.
I'm starting to think he didn't. I mean, he dropped
lying.
He dropped about 75 puns on my Twitter feed earlier today, so I think he's in the mood.
I'm not sure he's employed.
Craig is the man.
He really is. He's the best.
I love Craig.
Maria feels for you, Scott, though. Sorry, but that's a hell of a win. Yeah. And first place was $10,000. That's so nice.
I love that Scott answered for Scott Fish. He said, "Craig, I do. I
take bag bribes.
He's like, I totally do. How'd you know that?"
Well, guys, I want to make sure we have enough time to cover as many tight ends as possible. I know Coop's excited to get in here because he's got some really great tight end knowledge. We were talking about some of these coming into the show, so there's a lot we have to cover.
Yeah.
Right, Jay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone before we get into the tight end tiers, we are here live streaming every weekday, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Come on, Monday through Friday, throughout the off season, all year, not just during the fantasy season. Come on in and have a little bit of fun with us. We'll be talking fantasy, we'll be talking dynasty, we'll be just talking random crap like we like to do. Also, we have our FanDuel Fridays, 6 o'clock Eastern time, every Friday. Check us out there on the FanDuel YouTube and Twitch channels. And then Sunday, we do our Sunday recap. We'll be there on the FanDuel channels, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Let's go. Sunday. Let's go.
Like and subscribe.
Right. And subscribe. Like the video. Do it all.
Says, I'm sure you have time to cover all 8 or so tight ends. This
no,
is exactly what I
Andrew,
said.
What do you have to say about that?
That hurts, man. That hurts, dude. I'm telling you, we can go all the way down to the practice squads. That's what I'm talking. You want to talk Eli Wolf, man? We can get into that.
Who the heck is Eli?
Like we were going over the tight ends that we have available on our tier list right here, and Andrew was like, "Wait a second, like, hold on.
I'm already
talking about this guy or this guy."
I'm very excited to.
I thought we had
get
plenty.
To Josiah Dewara.
You can probably take Pharaoh Brown right out of there.
No, it's Pharaoh Brown, dude.
Come on.
Great name. Great name.
Pharaoh Brown.
That is a great name. And Scott said, don't forget the 5 a.m. Jay and Joey show. Of course, the 5 a.m. Jay and Joey show. Yes. Every single day, 7 days a week. You forgot Josh. It's the Josh, Jay, and Joey show.
Yeah, I won't be on the show, but they like having my name in there just like to get clickbait kind of.
Boost views.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. So, Andrew, Coop, let's get in there. We are ranking tight ends today. Like I said, we're going to start with you. Whoever is picking the tight end, he'll decide what tier they thinks they belong in, and then we'll go through each of us 3, and then we'll average out where we put the tight end and what tier they'll end up actually finding themselves in. So, Coop, who do you want to start with here?
Okay, so let me make it easy by getting us started with a baseline tier 1 guy that I think pretty much everyone can agree this guy's tier 1. You know, for Dynasty, for any format, really. And that's Mark Andrews. So you have a guy, elite production, right? He's only 26 years old. He's tethered to a young quarterback who's going to be with the team for a long time. And, you know, one thing that I always look at with Dynasty is how the team is built, what direction they're going in, and whether they want to make massive changes or whether they are content with what they have, right? And this team, you already know that, you know, they spent 2 first-round picks on wide receivers. They have the wide receivers that they're going to have moving forward. They're not really a massive threat to Mark Andrews' what he does, the red zone, things like that. So I think that he's a guy that's going to be pretty safe for multiple years now. And he's a guy I personally think is pretty squarely tier 1. So what do you guys think?
JL, what do you think here?
So
Who's
Mark Andrews,
tier 1?
right?
Yep, Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews, absolutely a tier 1 tight end. I completely agree with everything Coop said. He has shown it this year. The red zone targets, the targets in general, the volume has been there. Mark Andrews has looked fantastic throughout the season. He is absolutely tier 1.
I couldn't agree more. Mark Andrews, he's still young. Right now he's the number 1 ranked tight end in fantasy. He's leading in most categories, right next to Kelce. But we're talking about Travis Kelce, one of the best tight ends we've ever seen in fantasy. So Mark Andrews might be kind of the passing of the guard here. And it didn't matter what quarterback he was playing with either. You know, Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson, Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews was an elite tight end. He's much younger than Travis Kelce, like I just said. And he just got a nice contract. He's going to be the Ravens tight end for a year to come. Mark Andrews, tier 1, and probably the easiest one to rank. Because like we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier, like maybe Kelce finds his way in here. Maybe Pitts does as well. But Pitts hasn't really proved it yet, and Kelce's getting pretty old now. And this is Dynasty tight end rankings, right? So Scott, real fast before we move on to our tier, Scott in the chat said, well, he's asking Scott Fish who his favorite tight end is. Can we just go through who's I want to go over our favorite tight ends real fast. Mark Andrews would be mine because I'm a Ravens fan, but if we take that out of it, it's George Kittle. George Kittle, the way he runs and everything, he's my favorite tight end. What do you think, JL? Do you have a favorite tight end?
This is tough. It's probably it's Mark Andrews.
Yeah. And how about you, Coop?
So, I mean, yeah, I'm a Patriots fan, so my all-time favorite tight end is Ben Coates. But which is crazy because you'd think I was going to say Rob Gronkowski, right?
No. Well, yes. Yeah, I absolutely thought that.
No. Yeah.
Well, because it's one of those things where it's like, when you grow up watching a guy and, you form those memories when you're a kid, it's like that was the guy for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
My first jersey that I ever bought, the 87 Ben Coates with the stripes on it, but and beyond that, I obviously still love Gronk too. So favorite active, probably Gronk. And then later on, I'll reveal who my biggest truther tight end is. I'm sure anybody that knows me has a pretty good idea, but I can't say he's my favorite, but I'd say that Rob Gronkowski is, man. He's just so good.
And honestly, just all time for me, very similar to you, Coop, it would be Todd Heap. Big Ravens fan my whole life. And Todd Heap was huge for the Ravens for quite a few years. About 10 years ago.
I love Bledsoe still too.
Scott saying, Coop, Pats fan, Ben Coates was awesome with Bledsoe. And then Scott Fish saying, I had Coates on so many fantasy championship rosters.
I can't tell if he's being sarcastic or not.
I don't think he is.
Yeah.
I believe him. Scott Fish is the OG of the fantasy industry.
He's been playing for a long time. I think since high school, if I remember correctly. It's when he first started playing with his dad. Terry Glenn fan for life.
Rest in peace, Terry Glenn.
Yeah.
And Jeff saying Heath Miller.
I love that Heath Miller and Todd Heap played at the same time, and both if you played in the Ravens Stadium, you'd hear Heap. If you played in Pittsburgh, you'd hear Heath. So it's just funny how it always works out like that.
And then it's like the fans that are always clapping, and so it's 3-yard run, and the Ravens fans are like, and the Steelers fans are like, we stopped them. I feel like that's the Ravens Steelers in a nutshell.
Yes. And Scott Fish said, not sarcasm, started playing in 1992. That's when I was born.
Hell yeah.
That's 2 years before I was born.
Wow. You're old, Scott.
You're old.
I mean, too. Yeah.
All right.
Ben Coates was Ben Coates' second season.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep tiering these tight ends. JL, the whole board's open to you. Which tight end do you want to talk about here?
Oh man, there's so many choices and I can't pick them. Let's go with Kyle Pitts. I know that's what everyone is here for.
Everyone came in for Kyle Pitts.
Dynasty, he's absolutely tier one dynasty asset. He had a very good season. For fantasy, not so much. It was kind of average, if not below average. But what I saw this season was that Kyle Pitts is a fantastic route runner. Kyle Pitts is going to be a ridiculously valuable weapon on that team once they start to put things together. Hopefully, if they start to put things together. But his young age compared to the rest of the guys in that tier one sets him apart. Not to mention his physical talent. So he's tier one for me.
Tier 1 for JL, Kyle Pitts. This is a dynasty league we're talking about, and he's still so young. Kyle Pitts is
21.
Number 3 in terms of receiving yards out of all tight ends this season, only behind Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. He is number 3. He has over 1,000 receiving yards, guys. He has 1,018 receiving yards as a tight end. He only has 1 touchdown on the season, which is kind of ruining his fantasy value.
Yeah.
And that's a little concerning for me because Matt Ryan, I feel like he's always had trouble throwing touchdowns. Go back to Julio Jones. That's always been his problem. So that's
he's got red zone
issues.
Him and Kirk Cousins, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. But Kyle Pitts is absolutely top tier tight end 1 for me personally. So he's going to go into tier 1. What do you think, Coop?
I'm 100% in agreement with you guys. I mean, the guy's 21 years old.
21.
That's the big differentiator. He has 1,000 yards as a tight end, and he plays more than half his snaps at wide receiver. You have to put him there. And guess what? When he hits his prime, which most tight ends usually hit their prime and their stride ages 24, 25, 26, Matt Ryan might not even be the QB anymore at that point. It's
a great point.
Have to worry about that type of thing. So, I mean, the way I look at it in Dynasty, if you're competing to win now and you're one of the best teams in your league, maybe you have Mark Andrews or Kelce as your number 1 overall tight end. But if you're, doing a startup or you're in a position to rebuild for later, I mean, you're not going to get any better than a wide receiver that you can start at tight end that's 21 years old and has 1,000 yards in the first season.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000 yards, guys. 1,000. That's so impressive to me. And he's such an athlete. I love Kyle Pitts. Great fantasy player. I love Scott. My favorite is when the Ravens Steelers fan would chant Heap and Heath, but then when the backup would come in and catch passes, they would still yell it. You're absolutely correct. They didn't even know. They wouldn't even realize it wasn't in. They're just like, yeah, this is what we do when the tight end catches passes. Yeah.
He's like, I'm my own man, guys. Stop.
You love that every time. That's so good. That's so good. But yeah, so I absolutely think these are the top 2 dynasty tight ends right now. Maybe there's some other names you can mention, and I'm going to mention the next one. It's going to be Travis Kelce. Just the guy who's been the tight end number 1 the last 5 years or so. He's right there. He's fighting with Mark Andrews still this season. Travis Kelce is still a tier 1 tight end for me. I know he's a little bit older, but like if you're still trying to go for a championship, he's the guy to have. And going into next year, going to redraft leagues, Travis Kelce will still be the first tight end off the board for me. I know you could make an argument for Mark Andrews, maybe George Kittle, but Travis Kelce's still an elite producer. Paired with Patrick Mahomes, we've seen tight ends play into their late 30s and still be very good producers. So I'm going to throw Travis Kelce in the top tier. I would still draft both these tight ends ahead of him. What do you think, Coop?
He is a tier 1 tight end for me. I mean, how can he not be? He's been, like you said, number 1 tight end 5 years in a row. And I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. In Dynasty, I always play to win. So my Dynasty rankings are always going to skew towards guys that are good right now. So in this, I'm going to obviously treat it like it's, a startup or whatever and just go, factor in age, everything like that. But that's the way I always play. The only time I've ever had to truly blow up a team is I inherited a team in a Sirius XM league from Lisa Ann. And she was so busy that she completely missed an entire year. Didn't do the draft, didn't do anything. So like I inherited a team that there were like 6 guys that weren't even in the league. Like Garrett Selleck was on the team. He was doing the real estate somewhere. You know what I mean? So I did have to blow that team up, but for the most part,
you went full and rebuild there.
Oh man, like she had the fullback from who was the fullback from the Packers there that I forget his name now. But John Kuhn. John Kuhn was on the team.
Kuhn, that's another one of them.
Kuhn, yeah. Like it was bad. It had been so long that Rob Gronkowski had retired and then he had already came back. So like it worked out. Well,
luckily he wasn't cut, right?
Yeah, she didn't cut him because she wasn't paying attention. So it worked out well. So, but that's me. I always try to win. I play to win. The end of the game, the end goal is to win. So that's kind of where I'm at. So Kelce won for me. What do you think, Joe?
Kelce is absolutely still in tier 1. The age, it's concerning, but he hasn't really lost a step too much. And he's just like we were talking about with Mark Andrews, like he's attached to a quarterback and an offense that I want to be attached to. So until he starts, the wheels start coming off, I'm not gonna be too worried. 32, I'm sure he could play for at least another 3 years, which is typically what I'm looking at in Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
That Patrick Mahomes connection is real as well. Travis Kelce tends to stay very healthy. That's what I love. The best the best ability is availability, right, guys? So I
my mom always said.
Mama, yeah.
That's what Mama say.
So
I am taking hits above Kelce though in Dynasty.
Me too.
Agreed.
How about Mark Andrews?
I'm taking Mark Andrews above Kelce. Oh God, that's really close. I don't know.
You're just kind of bouncing. For me, it depends what my first couple picks are. Right. So if like the running backs fall to me, like I had one where it's like I picked like Christian McCaffrey in the first round, and then like I got Saquon and Zeke in the next.
That's a team to win now with.
So I'm taking Kelce in that team, and I'll let the wheels fall off if I have to. But you got to win.
I'd also take Andrews at his draft price over Kelce. So
I would take Andrews.
Facting that, I'm sorry, is that what I said, Andrews?
I meant I actually said Kelce by accident, but I would say Andrews over Pitts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. That becomes less difficult when I factor in the draft cost because I don't think I'd take Travis Kelce in the first round.
Yeah. All right, so you want to move on to the next player, Coop? Who you want to talk about here?
I do, and the question is whether I want to make this.
You want to get a little deeper, maybe?
Well, not get deeper. I don't want to go too deep here, but
just a little deeper.
Whether I want to make this tricky or not. And the thing I'm going to do, what I'm going to do here What I'm going to do here is that I don't want to, because if you put certain guys in tier 2, that means other guys need to go in automatically. Kind of makes that boring. So I'm going to go ahead and say that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right? You know what I mean? It's like if I put somebody else in tier 2, then anyone that we think is above him goes in there automatically, makes that kind of boring. So I'm going to go ahead and say George Kittle is my next best tight end after these 3, but I'd put him at the top of tier 2 for me.
So this is a tier separator for you because I think for most people, George Kittle is going to be the next tight end here. So he's separating tiers. So it's these 3 guys, then George Kittle.
And I'm doing the math on, like we're talking about, we'll probably get to 20 tight ends or so. We already got 3 in the top tier. Kittle probably could go in the top tier for me. The thing with Kittle that separates him from the other guys is that he is probably the best overall tight end in the league. But for fantasy football, sometimes that's not a good thing. So George Kittle is the only tight end since Orange Julius on the Broncos to block on over 15% of his pass plays, yet still finishes a top 5 tight end in fantasy.
He's one of the best blockers in the league.
And that, he is truly. And that we've seen that be a detriment to guys like Dallas Goedert. Like Dallas Goedert was the number 2 graded blocking tight end in the league. And what happened was, even though he was as good a pass catcher, if not better than Zach Ertz, Ertz was a worse blocker. So he's never going to be the one that gets that blocking role. So Ertz ends up playing slot. Goedert ends up playing that inline blocking role, and it just hurts his fantasy production. And we've seen it with Kittle in a number of games, notably the first game of the season versus the Lions. They had him blocking. There's no reason to throw him the ball. He didn't do anything. This past week, once again, when you're that good at blocking, if somebody's coming off the edge, disrupting things, or if you're just running the ball well, or if you just want to run plays where, you roll out and he stays in the block, that hurts you in fantasy. Guys like Tyler Higbee and Chris Herndon blocked on 15-20% of their passes. Like there was 100 routes that Chris Herndon and Tyler Higbee could have run last year but didn't. And that's the one thing for me with George Kittle that puts him just in that tier below. He's got everything else, and if he was had a coach like Chan Gailey that just put him in slot and he just ran a million routes, he'd be in that top tier for me. That's the one thing that keeps him in the second tier. I don't know about you guys.
That's fair. Kittle, I'm still going to put him in that tier 1 grouping, but it's absolutely everything you're bringing up, Coop, is definitely affecting my outlook on Kittle here. Scott Fish bringing up a great point. Says the stats of Lance in the game are scary too. And and that's concerning. I don't know that we can extrapolate a ton, but it's uncertainty, right? It's a new quarterback in this offense for Kittle, and it's going to change things. And so there's uncertainty there. That being said, I still have him in the back of tier 1. He's that last tight end that I'm willing to throw into that group.
Yeah, I understand. I actually would draft all 3, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, and Travis Kelce in a dynasty league ahead of George Kittle, believe it or not.
I believe it.
And if George Kittle is in tier 2, I think he's in a tier of his own. I couldn't put another tight end in that tier next to him if he were to be in tier 2. For me, I am going to end up putting him in the back end of tier 1, though, personally. Like Scott Fish said, I'm actually very concerned about Trey Lance and him, just because Trey Lance runs a lot. There's going to be a lot less passes thrown when Trey Lance is the starting quarterback. But I think Trey Lance is going to figure out a lot of things about being an NFL quarterback, and George Kittle is he's the best tight end with the ball in his hands in the league. Get this guy the ball. He's going to run over everyone. He's faster than most players. I love George Kittle. And just for that fact, he's going to be in the top tier for me, just because, like you said, Coop, he's the most talented tight end in the league in my mind.
There's only a handful of tight ends over the last 5 years that have had multiple plays that went over 50 or 60 yards. And the only ones are essentially Kittle and Gesicki. And Kittle's had like 7. Kittle's had, if you look at Kittle, he's had like 84. I think Johnny Smith technically has 1 pass and 1 carry that went for over 50, but there's not a lot of guys that are breaking off these big plays except for George Kittle. He has like 7 of them, and he's got plays of 84 yards, 85 yards. Like he runs a 4.52, so like this guy can, he like at his size, you shouldn't be able to do that. It kind of confusing why he fell to the 5th round in the real draft. But, I will say that this went exactly how I hoped it would, where it's like he got 1 vote for 2, but ended up in tier 1, because that's how I feel about it.
Right. Yeah. And I think Josh and I are in line with that, where he's like straddling that edge. So it's perfect. He does belong in the back, or at least at the top of tier 2 if he is a tier 2.
And now you get what I was saying, though. If I picked another tier 2 tight end, like it makes Kittle kind of boring for us.
Yeah.
It almost forces him into tier 1, right? So
Right.
I love that you did that, Coop. But when it comes down to it, I think if we did a dynasty startup draft right now, you're going to see all 4 of these tight ends go maybe in the same round, maybe in the same 12 picks or so. We just did a mock draft last week, and they did. Kyle Pitts went 311, and then Mark Andrews went 410. He was the last one drafted out of all 4 of these guys.
Scott Fish in here saying he traded Kittle and Waddle for Kyle Pitts in a league, and he was loaded at wide receiver. Still don't care. Happy with it. I like that trade. I don't mind that trade at all. If you're loaded at wide receiver, I think that's a perfectly fine trade.
You can't do it now, though. No one in the right
it would be
mind's doing
tough.
that trade now.
You could just get
But,
more.
you
Not that it's
Pitts.
not that it's like if you weren't starting Waddle, and it is, then I think for the long term you got Pitts.
Right.
Could be,
Yeah, long term, I think that will pay off. I think short term, it does at least this season. It looks like it hurts. And they said he has Pitts and Freiermuth in that league. Feel like you just sit back for it. Yeah, Freiermuth is going to end up being a great value for Dynasty. People who drafted him in Dynasty.
And then Truly Epic thinks that Knox and Schultz are tier 2 and tier 3. What do we think? Close to them? We're going to get into those for sure. There's no doubt about it. And then Truly Epic saying Dallas Goedert tier 2. Believe me, if JL doesn't bring him up here, then we'll be talking about Dallas Goedert pretty soon.
Yeah.
But JL, you're up. What do you think?
All right, let's talk about Darren Waller.
Darren Waller. Let's talk about him.
I still think Darren Waller is. Actually, can I switch it? I don't want to talk about Darren Waller.
You can absolutely switch it. I'll allow this.
How am I going to make an argument for this? Let's talk about Hawk. Hawk for me is tier 2. He's that next tier 2 tight end. He, young, 24 years old, did not have a great season this season. It's not on a great offense, but I do expect the Detroit Lions not to always be as bad as they are this season and the past recent, I guess, five years or so. But TJ Hockenson has looked good, and he's gotten the volume in that offense. I think that they're going to continue to scheme around him. So he's tier 2.
So JL saying TJ Hockenson in tier 2 behind the likes of Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. And I absolutely agree. TJ Hawkinson's only 24 years old. He missed a good chunk of the season, but this year he was impressive for a large majority of the season. There were some games in there that I know there was one game where he had a target and no catches. That was really disappointing. We hate seeing that. This Lions team isn't got a lot of supporting pieces around him, but George Kittle, I know Amon-Ra St. Brown's broken out. I'm still putting George Kittle. I'm still putting TJ Hockenson ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown as the top pass catcher on the Detroit Lions. He's going to be a safety blanket for whatever quarterback is the quarterback there. I know it's Jared Goff right now. Maybe they stick with him. He's been, I wouldn't say impressive, but solid, right? So TJ Hockenson, tier 2, especially in Dynasty, only 24 years old. Coop, what do you think?
Totally agree with you guys. He's the next guy I have ranked. And, there's something to be said for a guy to be able to go out there and perform when your team is terrible and everyone knows you're the best pass catcher. What I mean? Like everyone knew this.
We saw it with Kyle Pitts, right? Like they just could focus on him all season.
Yeah. So like I love that from him. And the other thing that, a lot of people might discount it or say it's meaningless or whatever, but the fact that he went to this camp with all these tight ends, the best tight ends in the league, and at the end of it, it could have been decided based on who could drink the most beers or who was the best at ping pong. But at the end of the day, they said that TJ Hockenson he got the belt or whatever it was at the first ever tight end university. And, next year, as the names come out with who is, gets the belt year after year in this thing, it might shed some more light on what it might mean. But just the respect factor for them to come out and say, it's not Kittle, it's not Mark Andrews, it was actually TJ Hockenson. That for me actually does mean a little bit of something. So.
Yeah.
Right there with you. So Hawk is going to find his way into tier 2. He's going to be our top tier 2 tight end for our Dynasty League. And Scott Fish coming in just off the trade. This was before Waterberg had in tight end premium. So obviously it works now, but I'm happy. Yeah, tight end premium. George Kittle's still there. I love getting Kyle Pitts. Coming into the year, I would have said that's a fine trade. Just because
I still don't hate it.
But yeah, okay. That's fine. You're not doing it now, though.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay, let's talk. We'll talk in one of our fantasy leagues. We'll talk. No worries. JV Barry saying, "Wow, Coop even put a button down on for you guys. He doesn't do that for fantasy besties. Thank you, Coop. You look fantastic.
So respected.
You know what's funny about that is that first off, fantasy besties isn't during the day, during the middle of the week. Second is that on the last besties episode, I actually was wearing a button down because I fell asleep. After I was like sitting up on my couch and I woke up and I was like, oh my God, fantasy besties.
Oh, I got fantasy besties.
So I was wearing a button down, JB. Thanks for noticing.
Yeah, wow, rude.
Right back at you.
Truly Epic said TJ Hawkins will bounce back. Tier 2 sounds about right. I completely. He's got to be in tier 2. And Eddie said, "Hey, it won the championship.
Woo!
Let's go, Eddie.
Go, Eddie.
Let's go. Yes.
But
if you're in any Dynasty leagues, you're interested in getting into Dynasty, these are the tight end tiers for you that you want to check out, right?
Yes, sir.
And I alluded to it a little bit. I saw Dallas Goedert there in the chat, and that's who I want to talk about. Dallas Goedert. I think he belongs in tier 2. He's gotten rid of Zach Ertz. Jalen Hurts, you might be a little bit concerned about, but I think Dallas Goedert, he's still young. He's only 26 years old, the same age as Mark Andrews. And I just want to see what happens, especially an off season, just all to himself. No Zach Ertz. They know he is the number 1 tight end going into the season. So I'm actually going to put Dallas Goedert in tier 2 next to TJ Hockenson. What do you think, Coop?
I wholeheartedly agree on that. I have Hockenson ahead, but I mean, I pretty much already gave the rundown on Goddard's situation, why it took him so long to get to where he is now. But, he immediately went into a role where he's playing a lot more wide receiver, playing a lot more slot. He's the focal point of that offense in terms of the red zone. I think that, a lot of us were waiting for this to happen, and there was some concern that it wouldn't happen the way that we thought because, we've seen guys like Jonnu Smith, for instance. We waited a long time on him, and then it didn't pan out the way we thought, right?
And we all thought it would once he signed with the Patriots, and then Hunter. No, I digress.
But at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen with the future of Jonnu Smith, but we do know that they've committed to Dallas Goedert. He's in a perfect situation, and I think that because of Hurts and all that, you really can't put him in tier 1, but tier 2 is probably exactly where he should land because he's still not that old. He's like 27, I believe, or 27. So, yeah.
JL, what do you think?
Yeah, he's tier 2 for me. Definitely belongs in that tier with Hockenson. Echo everything you guys said.
We are all on the same page regarding Dallas Goedert. JB Barry saying, I love the graphics, guys. Good stuff. Shout out to RotoHeat Rick Butts over with the RotoHeat team. He actually put together these graphics, and I think we're going to need some new ones. I'm sure there's going to be some people moving around, so players changing teams. But thank you, Barry. Shout out to Rick, though. Rick Butts.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rick.
Epic. Go ahead.
I was going to say shout out to Rick, although Rick, I'm having a little trouble reading that James O'Shaughnessy one.
Yeah. Hey, O'Shaughnessy, what are you doing? Make your name like shorter or something.
Right?
Right?
Figure it out, James.
Yeah.
Jimmy O.
Truly Epic said Dallas Goedert had some pretty impressive games like week 13. I'm not sure. Let's just make sure week 13. Okay, it was actually impressive. I was just making sure you weren't being sarcastic, Truly Epic, being like, yeah, look at this horrible game he had in week 13. He did have a fantastic game in week 13 when he played the New York Jets. He had 6 catches and 2 touchdowns, 105 yards. Dallas Goedert's just a great talent at the tight end position. I'm excited to see him in a full offseason, knowing he is the starter. But we are moving to Coop. Coop, you get to pick your next tight end. We're starting to develop these ranks a little bit, these tiers. So where do you want to go next?
I kind of like the way we're going without too much jumping around. And I think once we get into some guys a little later, there'll be more discrepancy where the jumping around will kind of happen naturally. So I think what I'm going to
all been on the same page so far. That's interesting. That's fun.
Well, what I'm going to do here is like based on my own rankings and my own opinions, this is the guy who would serve as the end cap for tier 2 for me. I think that beyond this player, there's not going to be much more that I'm really going to want to put into that tier 2. Maybe you guys will, but most of the formats I play are PPR. There's a lot of touchdown dependent options out there. So I'm going in tier 2 with Darren Waller here. I think that he's proven that he is the top target on that team. He's the guy they go to in the red zone. I mean, we've seen there's very few guys in the league where if they get 15 targets, you turn around and say, I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Like if all of a sudden Tyler Conklin got 12 targets in a game, I would be like, what? You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of thing, and then like
what happened to Justin Jefferson?
Right. Well, with Darren Waller, it's like, you could wake up on a Friday morning and look at, to see Darren Waller got 19 targets and you just keep scrolling. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't even tweet about it because that's just like every once in a while that happens. So, and there's very few of those guys. So Darren Waller has to be towards the top for me.
What, 19 targets in week 1 for Darren Waller? So yeah, you're
that
absolutely
was such
correct.
a tease.
It was a tease. It was a tease.
And he did it the year before too, though. I mean, like, I'm pretty sure one of those games the year before, he also had like something crazy, like over 15 targets. And it's like, there's not many guys that do that ever, let alone twice.
Last year he had 2 games.
16 and 17 targets. It's like, guys just aren't doing that. So he has to go there. I know he's a little bit towards the older side, but I mean, this is also a guy that was out of the league for a little bit. So wear and tear might not be as bad on him. And he also, we also know that he, we've seen guys struggle with alcohol and things like that. We know that, Demaryius Thomas had issues with alcohol. We know that certain guys like Austin Seferian-Jenkins was out of the league pretty quickly, like
Max Crosby, for instance, who is going,
and when you have a guy like Darren Waller, where he doesn't drink, he takes care of himself. I mean, in Dynasty, that means a little bit of something, I feel.
That's a good point.
What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, Waller he's the last one in this tier for me as well. I'd love to have some dissenting opinion here, but I don't. I think that the biggest concerns for me and why I hesitated originally was that I think he belongs in the back of this tier 2 now in Dynasty. And the reason for that is one, he is a little older, 29 years old. It's not that old, but slightly on the older side. And the fact that his team is going to go through this complete change of the guard, right? New head coach. Is Derek Carr going to be the long term? I don't know. There's a lot of things that are changing and uncertainty in his situation that makes me a little bit more concerned for his volume, but he's so talented. And for tight ends, for what we've seen, the volume being there, he's the back end of tier 2 for me.
Yeah. Going into next season, I'm going to be drafting Darren Waller pretty high. I'm gonna feel pretty confident Darren Waller. There's one tight end we haven't talked about, Gronk, that I still might draft over him depending on what that situation looks like. But yeah, I'm very confident about Darren Waller, especially for next season. And I completely agree with you guys. He belongs in the back end of tier 2. Coming into this would have been, if you just asked me to tier these tight ends, this is what it would look like, tier 1 and tier 2. And now it gets a little bit interesting. So I completely agree with what we've done so far. So who brought up Darren Waller? That was Coop, right?
I did, yeah.
All right, perfect. So JL, you get to bring up the next tight end, and this is going to be a fun one because I think we could go a lot of different directions here.
I think we could. Matt saying, as someone who has a Waller, I feel the same way, JL. I'm nervous, but I love the guy. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm confident, but with a little voice in the back of my head that's nagging me. It's like, things could change. All right, so let's get into the next one.
Wait a second. You sure there's not another tier 2 tight end?
Huh?
Because you
got to explain it to do,
Coop. Maybe we'll get into Evan Engram in a little bit. We'll see where he winds up.
That's the truth. That's the truth or tight end for me. I am incapable of being unbiased about Evan Engram. I'm warning you guys right now.
You and Simon.
He's talented.
Yes.
We'll talk about him.
All right. Where you want to go here, JL?
All right, let's talk about.
Truly epic. Saying considering he plays
dang
with
it,
Renfro, it's tier 2 for him too.
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about Freiermuth.
Okay,
Mr. Fryer Truck. He's tier 3 for me.
Yeah?
He's earned his way to the top 3 tiers.
JL, I tend to agree with you. Pat Freiermuth,
23.
we all know Juju Smith-Schuster got hurt. He played the first 5 weeks of the season, and ever since Juju Smith-Schuster was out of there, and Juju, I'm almost positive he's going to be leaving this offseason. He signed a 1-year contract coming into this year, kind of bet on himself, and I think he's going to find his way onto another team. But Pat Freiermuth, 23 years old, rookie from last year. I think he would have had a lot more hype if Kyle Pitts wasn't part of this draft class, but he has looked so impressive ever since Juju Smith-Schuster has not been on the field. Big tight end, big body, great pass catcher. He's a tier 3 tight end for me. We don't see a lot of tight ends have this good of a season their rookie year. Typically it doesn't happen. I'm very impressed with Pat Freiermuth, tier 2 for sure. I mean, tier 3 for sure.
Yeah. So for me, I would actually put him into tier 4.
Okay.
So for me, so just to give my basic philosophy on tight ends is that you want to roster talent. This is for Dynasty. Roster talent and start opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have as many talented guys as possible, but the guys you want to start are the ones that have the best opportunity. And so sometimes that is, a guy like Logan Thomas comes out of nowhere. There are a lot of guys that lost their Dynasty leagues because they wouldn't move a Jonnu Smith for a Logan Thomas because, even if they didn't have a starting tight end, because they cared more about the overall, the overall Dynasty idea of I want to have the most talented players, but it's not always like that. So for Freiermuth, I do love the talent. I think he's great. He obviously supplanted Eric Ebron, who's probably gone. But the problems that I run into are, 1, the quarterback, and 2, in my top tiers, tiers 1, 2, and 3 at least, guys that I'm starting, right? I want them to be locked in as top 2 targets on their team, or at least have a chance to have that. And I think that with Deontay Johnson and with Chase Claypool, just those 2, even if they don't bring anybody else in, don't bring Juju back, you're in this window of touchdown dependency to a certain degree, especially because, historically Big Ben's been a guy that leads the league in passing. We've seen him throw a ridiculous number of pass attempts. And that's the only way to really get to a point where you have 3 fantasy sustainable guys. So that's the only thing that keeps him in tier 4. And I can confidently say that since I already know that he's going to get voted into tier 3 and he's there anyway. And that's probably a good spot for him too. He's right in between those tiers for me. It's almost like we should have 2 columns, like the future column and the current column.
Almost.
Because he's the guy that moved the farthest up my rankings this year of anyone. You know what I mean? Like I had Kyle Pitts in another planet, and then everybody else is down here. And now Pat Freiermuth is like a little moon going around that planet. He's like up there.
That's great. I love that.
And everybody else is still down here on Earth, like Trey McKitty. I mean, like I don't know what you do with guys like that. So that's So, but I do like the guy. It's just that's my reasoning for putting him on the borderline.
I agree with what you said there, Coop. I think Pat Freiermuth does have a chance to be a top 2 target, even with Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, though. We'll see what the quarterback situation looks like next year. It could be pretty bad with the Steelers' offensive line as well. But there's Najee Harris we got to consider there too. He's a great pass catcher, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a little thin, but at the same time, I mean, like Chase Claypool, like if it's still Tomlin, still that gang, like if he keeps doing what he's been doing, they might look to move him. I mean, they moved Martavis Bryant when he was productive because they didn't like him, and that turned out to be right. So maybe if he keeps pissing the coaching staff off, maybe Claypool goes out too, who knows, so that's why you want to roster him. Like I'm always rostering him, but I just don't know if I trust him to be my starting guy on a competitive team.
Right.
I get that completely. So I believe I'm up next, and there's a guy I'm really excited to bring up. I'm very high on him. I would draft him ahead of Pat Freiermuth. He would be the top of my 3rd tier. You'd be my next guy I would like to mention, and it's Dawson Knox. It is Dawson Knox. In a standard league, he's the number 5 tight end throughout the season. In a PPR league, he's number 9, but he also missed a few games himself. I've been very impressed with Dawson Knox. Andrew, you brought it up. It needs to be a top 2 option in the receiving game to kind of be in consideration for you. I think he could be that as soon as next year. You got Stephon Diggs, and then who else, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys you can mention. Gabe Davis, I love what I've seen out of him so far, but I'm going to put Dawson Knox right up there. Tied to Josh Allen for the foreseeable future. I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far. He's got as much touchdown upside as any tight end in the league, and that's what we're looking for a lot of the time. So Dawson Knox is going to wind up in my tier 3. What do you think, Coop?
Yeah, so I have not there's a couple guys that I have very close, and it's Freiermuth, Knox, and another guy that I'm going to mention with my next pick that I think they're very similar in terms of where they're at in their touchdown dependency. But Knox, there's something to be said, especially when it comes to red zone and end zone targets for chemistry with the quarterback. I mean, we've seen it. Aaron Rodgers is the king of just deciding that he's going to throw the touchdowns to one guy, whether it's Robert Tonyan, whether it's Devontae Adams, whether it's James Jones. Like, if you can develop that and become that guy, it's incredibly valuable and powerful in fantasy football. I mean, Mark Andrews, right? I mean, no one has more end zone or red zone targets than that guy over the last 3 years. So Knox, I think, does have to go in tier 3 because of that. He's tied to Josh Allen. They're always making stupid jokes together. They're good friends. And, if they don't bring in somebody, like obviously the risk is that they decide they want to go out and spend up and bring somebody in. But there are so many teams that need wide receivers. Wide receivers are going to be expensive. I mean, if Calvin really doesn't come back, the only wide receiver signed for the Falcons this year is Frank Darby. You know what I mean? Like,
and he's great.
So good. And thinking about the Packers, if Alan Lazard, if Devontae Adams is gone, it's just Randall Cobb and Juwan Winfrey and somebody
Amari Rodgers.
And Amari Rodgers. That's it. Just those 3. So they're going to be very expensive. The wide receivers. Yeah. Sorry to disrespect them. So I think that Knox is going to be there. I don't think they really are going to be able to bring in somebody that displaces him. So I'm with you. Tier 3.
And real fast to mention, he's on the field all the time too. Go ahead, Joe.
Right. I don't think I'm as high on Dawson Knox. I would probably throw him in tier 4. I think there's a little bit of a tier break for me there, and that has a lot to do with target share and that I'm just not as confident that they're either that he's going to continue getting all of that volume, and that wasn't necessarily circumstances this season, or that they don't bring in some other talent. And so I would probably throw him in tier 4, but I know he's going to end up in tier 3 here.
I changed my vote to tier 4.
What?
Top of tier 4. That's where I wanted him. That's where I wanted him all along. So, JL, you're right on that, I think.
I moved him down.
I'm sorry,
Master persuasion.
But we're putting him at the very top of tier 4.
I'm cool with that.
He's so close to tier 4. I mean, he's they're at the club, and the bouncer is just like, you know what? Come on in. But he has to stay right there at the gate.
Look what you did, Scott.
He's not
Scott's
on
in here talking crap about Dawson Knox. It did change JL's vote. And now he's in tier 3. Now he's saying he's in tier 3.
Well, JB Barry knows that I was off Dawson Knox. I reluctantly came on, moved him up in my rankings due to peer pressure. And then what did he do? He went out and pulled everybody's pants down in the championship with a 0-point spot. You know what I mean? So he was this year's Robert Tonyan.
He pulled everybody's pants down.
Pulled your pants right down in front of the cool kids. In front of the cool kids.
No, not right in front of the cool kids.
That's why he's got to be tier 4. Sorry, Josh.
Man. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Sorry, Josh.
I don't love seeing Pat Freiermuth there in tier 3 now, honestly.
So now let me actually it makes this very interesting now too that Freiermuth is there, because I'm going to bring up a guy that I think is tier 3, and I would draft ahead of Dawson Knox, and I don't think you guys are going to agree.
Okay, so, hit us. What are you about to say here? I'm a little bit nervous, honestly.
So I'm going to go with Hunter Henry. And Hunter Henry. This is where we're getting into what I believe to be the most important metrics for sustainable tight end success, which is this is a situation where this year they weren't throwing very much with the rookie quarterback, which, I mean, Tom Brady's rookie year didn't throw a whole lot too. But I think that ramps up. I think that the volume increases. When you look at the underlying stats for a guy like this, he was second in red zone targets, only to Mark Andrews. Second in end zone targets, only to Mark Andrews. This guy lines up more at wide receiver than he does at inline. And the biggest thing for me is his ability to beat guys in man-to-man situations. That's the difference between him and Johnny Smith. Johnny Smith is good versus zone. I think we would have saw some very good games from Johnny Smith had he not got hurt. He was looking like he was going to have a very good game against the Jets, and then he hurt his shoulder. I mean, he got 5 targets in the first quarter, then he got hurt. But Hunter Henry is the guy that you go to in those man-to-man situations. He can beat a lot of the best guys at covering the tight end. I mean, some guys are still problems like Matt Milano, but for me, him tethered to Mac Jones with a lot of money tied up, being used the way he's being used in an offense that we think is likely only to get better as Mac Jones gets better. I don't see why I wouldn't want Hunter Henry in Dynasty. He's the same age as Dallas Goedert, and could potentially be in a better passing situation. So for me, I do like Hunter Henry a lot, and I think he's in tier 3, even if you guys don't agree with me. So.
Are you at all concerned that they'll bring in weapons? That he might see a decrease in volume, wide receiving talent?
I think the problem with that situation is that they've already tied up so much money in the weapons that they do have. I mean, you can't get out from this Nelson Aguilar deal. It's $15 million. If you trade him, if you cut him, it costs you $10 million. So he cannot be cut. If you trade him, it still costs you $5 million. So, and who the hell is trading for Nelson Aguilar? So
Yeah,
he's stuck. Kendrick Bourne is stuck on the team. Jacoby Myers is a restricted free agent. So he's, I mean, when you're a restricted free agent in this league, the way it's set up, you're an indentured servant, right? Like you can't get out from those contracts. So he's going to be back. Like, you know what I mean? It's true though, Josh. Like you can't get out from that. So I don't think, like, if they bring somebody in, it's going to be on top of what they have. And I don't think they can afford it. So that's where I'm at with that situation.
JB saying you only moved him up. I think talking about Dawson Knox because Linda threatened to beat you up.
That's entirely true. That's entirely 100% true. Linda and Reddit, it was like a perfect storm of
don't hurt the people on Reddit. Like
they'll come.
Yeah. They hurt me. They're mean to me, dude. With a downvote arrow, man. I can take
that downvote. So Hunter Henry, I have him in tier 4. His target share is 14% on the season. It's like it is promising. I do like that he is now tethered to Mac Jones, but I'm just not super confident that they're going to continue using Hunter Henry that way going forward. And so I can't in good faith put him above Knox or Freiermuth. I have him behind both those guys. So he's in tier 4 for me.
Yeah, I'm just seeing like Knox being in tier 4, and obviously that's not going to play a huge consideration because I know that's the averages of ours. But I would absolutely draft Knox above Hunter Henry personally. I'm tempted to put him in tier 5, but I won't. It doesn't matter. He's going to end up in tier 4. It sounds like, I'm going to put him in tier 4. I like Hunter Henry. The only thing is, like, when Jonnu Smith was healthy, they were splitting snaps, him and Jonnu Smith. I know they played different positions, they play in different parts of the field a little bit. Hunter Henry's a little bit more of the pass catcher, right? But the targets I saw, like, not super impressed, even with the fact that they don't have like a dominant number 1 wide receiver, which is a benefit for him. But I would like to see more targets, even with the case. I think there is a chance they bring in someone. I know they're a little tight on the cap, but they need wide receiver weapons, right, on this team when it comes down to it. And if he's going to be in my top 10 tight ends going into next season, so he's going to wind up in tier 4.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that's the thing with those 3 guys. They could be in either spot.
They're all very close and kind of like straddling a line here.
Right. All right. So we're getting crunched on time here. We might have to go rapid.
Yeah. Hey, let's run through some tight ends. Let's just bang some out. Let's a little bit less conversation, guys. Let's just bang out some tight ends. Who brought up Hunter Henry? That was Coop. So JL.
All right, let's go Gesicki. I'm throwing in tier 3.
You're gonna throw in tier 3. All right.
Yeah. Rick misspelled Gesicki. What a fool.
Did he? Let's hurt him. Let's hurt him.
Let's hurt him.
Gesicki.
Hurt him like a shepherd.
Gesicki. So, man, that's so tough. He belongs. For me, it would go Dawson Knox, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki. So it's kind of a tough one. Where where'd you put him, Joe?
I put him in tier 3.
I'm gonna put Mike Gesicki in tier. Man, he would be a tier 3 guy for me. Yeah, tier 3.
Good, that makes it easy. I got him in tier 3 as well. He's a guy that, the thing about Mike Gesicki is, now that we know who he is and what he does, whatever team is going to pay him, whether it's the Dolphins, who already use him as wide receiver, whoever pays for him is not going to make him put his hand in the dirt. You're paying for a guy to catch passes. So that's why I'm confident that he's going to be, you know what I mean? Unless somebody, pays him a ton of money to not do anything. Like, I think he's going to end up somewhere.
That's the dream. Hey, that's the dream. If he can get that kind of deal, take it.
Backup QB all day long. So
yeah.
Jay in the chat said, Josh, just as a family show, watch your language. Scott Fish said, let's bang out some tight ends. Josh Fuster. Correct play.
That's good. How did all 3 of us miss that? That's why I love the chat.
I giggled at it. It's part of the course here.
Right. Well, last time I was on that, I wasn't allowed to look at the chat the last time I was on. From now on, I only want games where I can be part of the
poll
chat.
Perception. Let's get poll. Right. You're getting on poll perception next.
Yeah, next time. J-Rock asking, is there a reason you don't have Irv Smith on the list? I think that is. I think this is a in season, like the list that we have here is from in season, so he probably just oversight got left out.
We've got to create some dynasty tier names here, but we only have a little bit of time, so we're gonna keep banging these out. Let's talk about Dalton Schultz. I would put him behind tier 4. He's a tier 5 tight end for me.
Yeah, I'll go 5 as well. I think that, he's a free agent. If he ends up still with the Cowboys,
Exactly.
he doesn't have a path to being a top guy. And I just don't think that he's athletic enough to be that good independently. I think the big part of it is that Cowboys offense. So, JL?
Pair him with a great quarterback. I love him.
Yeah,
exactly.
he's tier 5 for me as well.
Oh, I just threw him in there without hearing JL.
You did. Yeah, I do that all the time when I'm hosting too.
When I talk about Hunter Henry briefly, like the first man to man, like Schultz is the opposite. Like Robert Tonyan, his big thing is being able to sneak out because he's not a focal point, which I don't love that in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
So I'll go quick to get one going here. And
do it, Coop. Do it.
Evan Engram.
You wanna?
I'm going Evan Engram, and I'm putting him. I'm going to put him.
Tier 1.
So wait, we do averages, right? So I'll put him in tier 1. So no matter what it averages high,
it'll be like tier 3.
I will truly believe I do have him tier 3. I'm not even kidding. I have him in the same spot as Mike Gesicki, where what this guy is 4. This guy is 6'3", 229, runs a 4.42. Demaryius Thomas was 6'3", 225, ran a 4.41. I mean, like that's how this guy's built. He's built like Andre Johnson, like you know what I mean. Like, and I think that Jason Garrett making him play like Jason Witten was just was a terrible match. And I think whatever team's going to pay for Evan Engram, he's going to be a pass catcher and he's going to be in that kind of position. So I think that same thing. I'd rather take a shot on a guy like that than a shot on a guy like Dalton Schultz. So tier 3 for me.
Yeah,
that's fair. I'm not as confident. I'm going to throw him in top of tier 5. Top of tier 5 for me. Yep.
He would also be tier 5 for me. So that averages out. What's 13 divided by 3? I don't know.
4 point something.
3. Is it 4.5 or
4.4?
So he's going to wind up in tier 4, guys. He's going to wind up in tier 4. All right.
That's fine.
Look at that graphic. Powerful.
He's going to be in better situation. I think that's a likely case scenario. You can't be in a worse situation, right?
I'm just saying,
right,
hey, keep in mind, the fans voted for Robert Tonyan and TJ Hockenson for the Pro Bowl. The players and coaches voted for Evan Engram.
Sure.
JL, pick a tight end.
All right. Let's talk about Noah Fant.
A few more.
Noah Fant for me, tier 3. It's tier 3. I think he's been his lack of production has largely been a factor of his offense. And I think he's a very talented young player. So tier 3.
He'd be more like tier. He's next to Dalton Schultz for me. I would draft Hunter Henry and Dawson Knox for sure around him. But he'd be tier 5 for me.
I need to go trade for Noah Fant.
For Noah Fant, I think that so if we're talking about the rostering talent situation. I think you have to have him at tier 3, just simply because there's no one's had as good of a combine that he's had since. I mean, Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis is like the only guy that had a better combine.
I love Vernon Davis.
Truly unbelievably athletic player, Noah Fant, and he is so young. He came in the league so young. How old is Noah Fant right now? He's 24 still?
25?
I think he's younger than that.
24. Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm tier 4 is where I want him to be, but I put him tier 3 so he would end up tier 4. All right.
Yeah, look, tier 4. That's perfect.
That works.
All right. Someone I want to bring up Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet.
Yes,
I think he belongs right next to Dalton Schultz. I would put him in tier 5. Coop?
So I actually would put him in tier 4. I like Cole Kmet a lot. The thing is, when Matt Nagy gets fired, you lose that offense where he plays slot. It's like if I could hand pick the guy to run that offense, I would pick Chan Gailey to come back. I know he's a million years old, but he loves playing guys at slot, and that's the biggest thing for tight ends. Really, is your deployment. It hurts Noah Fant at least. So I do like Cole Kmet. I'm going to put him tier 4. I have him ahead of Schultz for sure.
JL?
Yeah. Cole Kmet has a 18.4% target share on the season. I know it's not super impressive considering the offense. They haven't been passing a ton, but still it tells me he's going to be a factor attached to Justin Fields. I'm gonna throw him in tier 4.
Tier 4?
Yeah.
All
Top
right.
of tier
So
4
we got 2 tier 4s and a tier 5. So that's gonna be a tier 4, right? You put him in tier 4, right, Coop?
I did.
All right, perfect. Do you want to run through one more round? I don't know if you have any time.
I got nothing going on. I clocked out for the day, so like I'm down to talk tight ends.
I would like to just fill it out a little bit more. Again, if we could run through them,
I'll talk tight ends till we get down to Eli Wolf and
Eli Wolf
and Tony Poljan and
you can get a couple extra minutes, JL.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
So let me get one that I think probably pretty squarely goes into tier 5 for me, which I like the idea of Adam Trautman. I like Adam Trautman for the long term. I think he's he put up crazy production at Dayton. I think that he was kind of banged up this year, but I think when they get a real quarterback, he's going to fall into a decent spot there. So for me, I think I would take Schultz ahead, but Trautman's pretty close to that type of caliber for me. So tier 5 for Adam Trautman.
Tier 5 for Adam Trautman from Coop. What do you think, Joe?
I don't think I can put him in tier 5. Where would I put Adam Trautman? I'm gonna put him I'm gonna put him in tier 6. I'm gonna put him in tier 6, and that even feels a little generous to me. We haven't really seen it. We saw him. He finally got on the field this season, but it wasn't overwhelmingly good. So I think tier 6.
Well, he's been out for the most part.
He has been injured a lot. Yeah,
week 12 earlier in the season, and then he missed some. Earlier in the season, he had a good stretch of games, and he was on the field a lot. He's more of a tier 6 for me as well. Is that where you put him, JL?
Yeah.
So tier 6, tier 5. So
I think that's good. There's a good number of guys that need to end up in that area anyway. But I just the target. It sucks that he was ramping up the way he was.
Right.
Six targets, 7 targets, 6 targets, 8, and then he got hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
On talent and upside, I would consider him putting him higher, but I feel like that's sort of the bulk of what it is here. I just haven't quite seen it, which makes me a little bit more nervous. And
it's a good point too that every name on the board is a guy that you can start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
the tight end position is a little bit deeper than it's been previously. I feel like a little bit.
Yeah, Adam Trautman is probably he's the beginning of that tier where you're not comfortable starting him in any format.
JL, what name do you want to bring up next?
All right, let's go with talked about Gesicki. Let's talk about is Higbee up there?
Yeah, he should be. Tyler Higbee is
here. There he is. All right. Higbee I have he's tier 5 for me.
Tier 5 for you?
Yeah.
All right. Tyler Higbee. Like Tyler Higbee, but how old is he now? He's 29 years old.
29. Oh, he's pretty old.
Didn't have a great season. I would say a disappointing season. I would draft Adam Trautman ahead of Tyler Higbee. I'm putting Tyler Higbee in tier 6.
Yeah, I'm there with you, tier 6, man. He's just a guy that we know who he is. He's a good blocker. They ask him to block a lot. He's not particularly fast. He's a guy that, once again, one of those guys that does better in versus zone, does better when you forget about him than a guy that you lean on, So
right.
I'm there with you, tier 6.
Tier 6. All right. There's a guy I really want to bring up, Rob Gronkowski. Who
is he down on the list?
He should be here, right? Gronk. We got Gronk.
Gronk.
Rob Gronkowski had a fantastic season, right? He looked really good, and his contract is up this year. I expect him to be back with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady going into next season. I see no reason why he wouldn't be. When I look at these tight ends, and even in a dynasty league, I'm probably going to draft Rob Gronkowski over Adam Trautman and Tyler Higbee. Even with his age, I'm putting Rob Gronkowski in tier 5.
Yep, I agree. And I think that when you get into the guys like Schultz, when you get into guys like Kmet and Trautman with the age, you know what I mean? That's a kind of a decent, that's a good pairing. Is that you take one of those guys, you take one young guy, you take one old guy. So you go with Gronk to start.
Love that in Dynasty.
Yeah, balanced.
Great balance like that. Yeah. So go with that. So that's I'm there with you. Tier 5, right around the Schultz pick. I'd probably pick him before Schultz, honestly, but I would probably get the younger guys first just to try and get the years of production. But Gronk for sure is a guy you take for the production now. What do you think, JL?
I'm absolutely with both of you guys. Tier 5 for me.
All right.
So now we got to talk about this guy quick. Let's
do one more. Let's all do one more.
Okay. So if you talk about Rob,
and then we're done.
If you're going to put Rob Gronkowski in tier 5,
I know who you're bringing.
You have to put Zach Ertz.
Yes.
Also in tier 5, I think, because he falls in the same boat. And I think I would actually take Ertz ahead just because he's a little bit younger.
31, yep. Year younger.
And, I'm not sure if you could take the year of wear and tear off from Gronk not playing for a year, but I mean, he was on a boat drinking, so maybe that'd be more wear and tear, So, but I put Ertz in that tier 5. It's the same deal. You take him to start, and that gives you the freedom to take whatever young guy you feel like taking.
So Ertz is going to go in tier 5 for Coop. JL, what do you think?
Tier 5 is exactly where he belongs. I put him and Gronk together.
I'm with Scott. I'm with Scott
with you
Fish
guys.
on that the rankings thing is that I have those guys higher the way that I play, but the way I play is considered reckless. So
Well, I also put Hunter Henry, Evan Engram, Noah Fant, and Cole Kmet in tier 5. Like, so I would have like, it would be like, there would be a large separation. It might be like Dawson Knox, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, then everyone else.
yeah, but you got to remember that I'm playing the game here, and I brute forced
Yes.
Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram into those tiers. So
No,
keep that in mind.
I understand. I understand Hunter Henry.
It's a game show.
Hunter Henry makes sense for me. You know,
I'm the guest.
Evan
I'm
Engram.
the guest.
And you're the guest.
Evan
Yes.
Engram.
I'm the guest, right? This is my show. So yes,
Yes.
everyone, you can discount those two players if you want. I know somebody, I think it was Matt, said that he Evan Ingram's ranking was going to make him close out of the pod or something like that. Yeah.
That's
All right,
hilarious.
JL. Last person.
Oh, I got to come up with another one. Dang it.
I got two names that we need to talk about.
All right, let's talk about who was it? I think Carlos came in here and asked about Everett. Curious about Everett, potentially without Russell. Let's talk about Gerald Everett. How old is Gerald Everett? He is
Not that young.
27. He is a solid 27. Russ might not be there. I'm throwing him in tier. He's tier 7 for me. I think he belongs in tier 7.
Yeah, I'm with you. Tier 7 for me as well.
Right. Not to mention Gerald Everett himself is a free agent. I know that Shane Waldron
yeah.
brought him over. Shane Waldron brought him over from the Rams, and he does like him, you know. But again, as long as Lockett and Metcalf are there, I don't even know if you want him to be on that team. Like, he might be better off in fantasy going somewhere else and being the focal point of a bad team, because sometimes, I mean, it worked for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, Josh, you said you had a good one that you.
There's two players I want to bring up. I believe they're both
Howard,
free agents
David
that could
Njoku.
sign. Yeah, it's those two.
No way.
Bring it up. Yes, it absolutely is. I mean, they're paired together. They were in the same draft class with Evan Engram. You know, if these players find the right situation, they could have a lot of fantasy relevance. Right now, though, I'm going to put them in tier 6, and they'd be at the top of tier 6 for me. Both OJ Howard and David Njoku.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have those guys with Everett because I think that they're similar caliber of players. I mean, OJ Howard is a better blocker than any of them. Njoku is actually a better blocker too, but I think Everett might be just as good of a pass catcher. Njoku is just such a freak physical athlete that you think he would be better.
I know,
you know.
right?
So I think they have the opportunity, and I think when you're looking to take stabs, both guys have to be mentioned. But I still will have both in tier 7, but I could see 6.
That's fine. And JL, what do you think? 6 or 7? You're going to be the decider. Is he going to separate them?
Kind of want to.
I like Njoku better. So, yeah.
I do, actually. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw Njoku in tier 6. I'm going to throw OJ Howard in tier 7. OJ Howard is a little bit older. And Njoku, I mean, he's definitely shown flashes. So maybe he can turn that into something on another team.
I like that.
I'm completely fine with that myself. I do think Njoku is a little bit more athletic. OJ Howard's a little bit of a bigger body tight end, maybe more of a touchdown threat, but I'm completely fine with the separation there.
You know, we could complete. I think we could complete this board just by getting a couple names on there.
Like who?
Logan Thomas needs to be on there somewhere.
Well, I don't even know if is he even in our
bottom left next to Luke.
Last one, Coop. So we're wrapping up with you. You get to pick one name. Is it Logan Thomas?
Yes, it's got to be. It's got to be Logan Thomas, and I think that he goes in that Gronk, Zach Ertz tier 5 because they paid him. They committed to having him there. Mm-hmm. You know, he's the next guy after Terry McLaurin, and I know he's older, but I mean, he's been a guy that they put at slot like every play, target hog. So I think he's got to go. He's got to go in that tier where if you're looking for a guy you can start right away, you can't take David Njoku, or if you take David Njoku, you want to pair him with somebody Ertz, Logan Thomas, Gronk. So I go tier 5 for Logan Thomas.
JL?
Yep, tier 5 is exactly where I would put him.
Yeah, sure. Tier 5 works. I like it.
After Gronk and Ertz. He's not. I don't think he's as talented.
I was borderline tier 6 to be honest with you. But
it's the opportunity. It's the opportunity. Nobody runs. He plays 100% of the snaps. He runs 100% of the routes. He led the league in routes run last year for tight end, more than Travis Kelce. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
So, guys, that's going to do it. These are our tiers determined by science. These are the tiers. Our Dynasty tight end tiers, lock it in. It's official. Science proved it. Coop, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It really was a lot of fun talking these tight ends with you.
Always fun, man. I love coming on this show, dude. So, I know Jay knows it. Everybody knows it. So I'm the guy that when somebody backs out, can't come on, just
hit you up.
Yeah. You get me on the schedule and send out those tweets and I get followers. That's my favorite part. But if somebody, somebody can't go tomorrow, man. Hit me up.
You just move around a few dentist appointments and you'll make it happen.
Yeah. My week is kind of booked with dentist appointments, but
it's all every day.
That's how you get that sparkle sound.
That's it. Sonic rings.
So cheers, guys. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, make sure you're following Coop. He's excellent follow.
He absolutely is.
We have fun.
You can find his name here, right here. Coop A Fiasco. Follow him. Do it. You're an idiot if you don't. All right, we're gonna get out of here, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow at 3:00 Eastern time. Every Monday through Friday, we are streaming here. We are Front Yard Fantasy on the Fantasy Football Game Show. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Our fantasy fortune. Let's go.
Let's go.
Trading makes fantasy fun.